What's up, guys? We're about 6 days out from UFC 221 Romero versus Rockhold for the interim 185 title. It was originally supposed to be Rockhold versus Whitaker, which I think a lot of people would have much rather seen. From what I've seen on social media, I really don't think a lot of people are going to buy this pay-per-view, partly because of the main event change and partly because the price has been raised up to $65 instead of $60, which I guess I kind of understand. The UFC is trying to make more money, but in my opinion, this really could be a fight night card. If the main event wasn't for an interim title, I think this is definitely more fit to be a fight night rather than a $65 pay-per-view. But this video is for all the hardcore fans that are going to watch this, and without any further ado, let's get right into these main card predictions. For the first fight on the main card, we have number 13th ranked light heavyweight Tyson Pedro versus Saparbek Safarov. I think a lot of people are counting out Safarov, maybe because he got knocked out in his last fight versus John Vellante, but up until that fight, he had finished all of his opponents. He's definitely not as easy of a fight as a lot of people are making him out to be, but with that being said, I still got to go with Tyson Pedro. He's had more experience in the UFC. He finished 2 straight opponents in the UFC before his last loss, which was to Ilir Latifi, and that guy's no slouch either. He's a top-ranked light heavyweight, so just because Tyson Pedro has faced better guys, beaten better guys, I think he wins by decision. I think this could be close, but I think Tyson Pedro wins by decision. Next up, we have a very important fight for both of these guys. We have Jake Matthews versus Lee Jingliang. Lee is on the brink of being a ranked welterweight, and Jake is trying to establish a winning streak that shows his true potential. Jake is a guy that originally was trying to make a name for himself at 155 in the UFC, but he experienced some adversity there. He got knocked out by Kevin Lee and lost a close decision to Andrew Holbrook. Jake decided that he would have more success at welterweight, and he recently fought at UFC Fight Night 121 against Bojan Veljković, and he really didn't look that good. He won the fight by split decision, but in my opinion, it was a robbery. I think Bojan won the fight. Jake looked really bad on his feet. He was getting hurt in the striking exchanges, and his only hope to win was just wrestling and holding down Bojan, and that got him the win somehow. But that card had a lot of bad decisions. I don't even think Jake thought he won the fight, and it's a coincidence that that fight was in Australia and Jake is Australian, so maybe there's a little bit of home cooking with that judging. I don't like to accuse home countries of doing that, but it's a real thing and it happens all the time, especially in Brazil. But in this particular instance, we might not even need the judges because, like I said, Jake had a little bit of a striking deficiency in his last fight. He was getting tagged, and Lee is a killer at 170. He's on a 4-fight win streak, and he's knocked out 3 of those guys. So could I see him winning by knockout? Yeah, I really could. But I could also see Lee winning by decision because I think he's a lot more well-rounded than Bojan Veljković. I don't think Jake is going to be able to bully him around in the wrestling and grappling situations. So I'm going to say Lee either wins by knockout or by decision. Next up, we have Australian heavyweight prospect Tai Tuivasa versus Cyril Asker. Ty is coming off of a highlight reel knockout over Rashad Coulter, and I definitely think we could see him in the top 5 of the heavyweight division in maybe even just like a year. He pretty much has everything it takes to be a top heavyweight. He's huge and he hits really, really hard. He's knocked out all of his opponents, and I think he's about to knock out Cyril Asker. I mean, this is probably the fight that I'm the most confident about. Cyril has a couple of knockout losses in the first round fairly recently. He got knocked out by Walt Harris and he got knocked out by Jared Cannonier. So my prediction is Tai Tuivasa by first round knockout. I think he's going to build his name off of knocking out Cyril, and then he's going to get a higher ranked opponent and probably knock them out too. I will be genuinely surprised if Tai Tuivasa does not win this fight. So now we're going from the fight that I was the most confident about to the fight that I'm the least confident about. Guys, I had a really hard time predicting this one just because I could see it going so many different ways. Mark Hunt said he wants to die in the octagon. He's recently had a whole lot of health issues, allegedly, like brain damage symptoms or whatever, and Dana White actually pulled him from his last fight versus Marcin Tybura. But he's back now. The Super Samoan is looking to beat Curtis Razor Blaydes, who was like the hottest heavyweight prospect about a year ago until he lost to Francis Ngannou, but that's not exactly a loss to be ashamed of. If Curtis wins, I think there's a slight chance that they might give him the Francis rematch. But if Mark wins, I think this is the last fight on his contract, and as many people know, he really has a hate-hate relationship with the UFC, so I think win or lose, he's going to go into another organization, maybe Bellator, but who knows. If Curtis comes into this fight and tries to use his wrestling and tries to follow the blueprint that Brock Lesnar set, I guess I could see him taking down Mark and holding him down and winning by decision, but honestly, I really don't see the fight playing out like this. The final conclusion that I came down to was that this fight would probably stay on the feet. Curtis has a lot of confidence from his last win over Alexei Olenek, where he basically TKO'd him. It was kind of a weird situation, but the doctor did say that Alexei had taken too much punishment from striking and could not continue. Curtis doesn't really have that Francis power, so I'm not too worried about Mark getting knocked out. Like I said, I think this is going to stay on the feet for pretty much the whole time, and Mark is the better striker, so I think he's going to be able to win by decision. I was going back and forth, and this was pretty hard for me to decide, but yeah, my final prediction is Mark Hunt by decision. And finally, for the main event, we have Yoel Romero versus Luke Rockhold. Luke is the former champion looking to get his belt back, and Yoel is the former interim title challenger who lost to Robert Whittaker, and he gets another chance to get the interim belt, which I don't know if I agree with. I feel like this could have been Luke versus Chris too or something like that, but this is the fight, so we got to roll with it. I think this is going to be pretty tough for Luke in the first 2 rounds because Yoel is such an unorthodox striker. He's extremely explosive, and he has a lot of energy in those opening rounds. But I think as the fight goes into the 3rd and 4th and 5th rounds, it's going to be more of Luke's fight. Luke has good cardio, and as we've seen, even in Yoel's last performance, he started to gas out in about around the 3rd and 4th round to where he couldn't complete takedowns and he was sucking air and lost a lot of his explosiveness. I think even if Luke loses the first 2 rounds, he's going to be able to turn it up in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and maybe even finish Yoel. Also, Yoel usually has a huge grappling and ground game advantage over his opponents, and the times that he hasn't, it's been really close fights, like his fight with Jacare, it was a split decision. But honestly, I think Luke has the ground game advantage in this fight just because he's going to be able to keep up the pace with his cardio, and he has a great clinch game too. So I could see Luke finishing this on the ground by TKO or sub in the 4th and 5th. But I think the most likely outcome is that Yoel gasses out and Luke ends up winning by decision. And I have to say, I hope that happens because I think Luke versus Robert Whittaker is a great fight. And in that matchup as well, I think Luke gets the real belt back. I think he deserves it. So I'm really excited for this fight. But yeah, my prediction is Luke by decision. Thanks for watching, guys. That's going to be it for this video. I really appreciate the support. And remember, if you have anything you want to comment, feel free to comment down below. I'm interested to see y'all's opinions on things. And I will see you next time.